Doing whatever it takes for our students, this is Education Forum, the podcast. I'm Allison Sillis, and I'm here with Dave Barrowclough, Associate General Secretary of the Protective Services Department in OSSTF FASO. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking a bit about bargaining, strike votes, and what this next little bit of time is going to be looking like for our members. Thanks so much for being here with me, Dave.
Thanks, Allison. It's good to be here.
So today's episode is going to be a little bit of a Q&A, which is a little bit different than the last one. And we're going to answer some questions that our members have sent in to us. You know, what is bargaining? What is a strike? What does a strike vote look like? You know, does a yes vote mean that a strike is inevitable? And, you know, what can members expect as we're going through this process? So we can dive into this together.
Sounds good.
I want to go into a little bit of a rapid fire Q&A of some questions or thoughts that our members have sent in to do with bargaining and strikes and all of those things. So I'm going to fire them off to you now.
Okay.
So myth or fact, a strike vote means a strike is definitely going to happen.
That is a myth. The vote could be enough to turn the tide of the day, or that it could lead to strike action. So it's not a guaranteed outcome.
How about this? Myth or fact, negotiations stop after a strike vote.
That is a myth as well. They could stop if the other side won't come to the table, which is not very often because they want an agreement, as do we. So usually a strike vote will happen and then bargaining will continue after that. It just changes what it's like at that bargaining table because we now have the power of all of our members behind us.
Yeah. So myth or fact, individual members do not really have an influence.
That's a myth as well. That's like saying I shouldn't vote in the provincial election, right? Because my vote doesn't count. Every vote counts, and that's an opportunity to have that say about what's happening.
Okay, this next one, coming from the membership, what is one thing that you would want every member to understand about strike votes?
The one thing I would want them to understand is how much power it gives us at the table. It's very important to come out and cast a ballot, and it's very important that we have a strong mandate because that in itself provides information to the public and provides information to the people on the other side of the table that we're serious about public education and defending it.
And so this last little bit, we've entered bargaining already. Can you give our members a little bit of an update about how things have gone so far since we've started the bargaining process?
Yes, so the members would be aware that from watching podcast 1 about what bargaining looks like. So we've finished our membership survey to get their priorities and taken those priorities, made proposals. At this stage right now, under the School Board Collective Bargaining Act, we are determining what is central and what gets bargained locally. So there has to be a division between the two of them based on the legislation. And so we're at that phase right now, trying to make sure that we maintain enough for the local tables to be able to have local influence and input into things because we want that local flavor to bargaining, and so that they can make sure that for their region or their makeup of the community, whatever, that they have some say in how their education goes, something the government has been removing from them as of late.
And where can our members get any of the information that has been happening in bargaining so far?
Well, they should make sure that they've signed up for our bargaining bulletins that come out usually after every day we have down at the bargaining table. We would put out a bargaining bulletin which would give them a summary of what's happened, tell them what next date is coming up and sort of where we are in the process. And it contains information on things that they might be able to do or share with their family, their friends, people that they know.
So you talked a little bit about the idea of local flair, and can you talk a little bit about, for our members who might be new or haven't been through this process yet, what may be the difference or the fact that we have two separate collective agreements, you know, the provincial and then a local one?
Yeah, so in around 2014, the government introduced the School Board Collective Bargaining Act, where previously everything used to be just the local unit would bargain with their employer, so their school board. Now there's two levels, two tables, where certain items are bargained at the central table for everybody, and they apply to everybody, and they make up the first part of their collective agreement. So no matter who you are in OSSTF, If you're in the school board collective bargaining sector, then your Part A is the central agreement, and then your Part B are the local terms of the collective agreement. Together, they make up your full collective agreement. So we would bargain things centrally that are generally have more to do with large financial items like salary, benefits, those sorts of things. And then generally with local items, they're more along the lines of processes and things like that, where you would do things or talk about things that impact that local school board quite a bit. So the school board could be rural, could be urban, could be further north, those sorts of things, and have special pieces that they want to be able to negotiate around that. Normally, we would bargain things like transfer, redundancy, surplus, all of those things. They're very specific to the local areas. The problem we're running into now is the government is trying to take a lot of things that we normally would bargain locally and move that up centrally.
So some big changes that could be coming, or that they're trying to implement, essentially.
Yes, it's been difficult so far. We've been down a few days and we're not making much progress with them. And our only recourse on the decision as to what's central or local is to go to the labor board and have them decide. There's no other kinds of actions we can take at this point because of the legislation.
Yeah. So it's just kind of going to be a wait and see right now for our members.
That's where we are, unfortunately.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about kind of like the burning question for our members right now? Like, what's next? What's happening next?
Well, if we get an agreement on what's central and local, then we would move into bargaining positions. If we can't get an agreement, we go to the labor board, and then still our next step is to actually get into bargaining positions, which is more what members would mostly think about when they think about bargaining. So the government and the school board sector, they would have positions on the table. We would have positions on the table, and we would try to go through those and come to an agreement at the end that we could then put to the members to ratify. And there's all kinds of things that can happen along the way in that path. We can either come to an agreement and no real need for member input until whether or not they're satisfied with that collective agreement, or things cannot work out. And then that's when we are more likely to come to the membership to ask them for some support along the lines of coming together. Like as Martha had talked about in the first episode, collective bargaining is about taking the power of one person, and instead of having them bargain against their employer themselves, we all come together and bargain with our employers. So the power that a union has really comes from its membership. And it gives us the ability to do all kinds of things to put pressure on that table to get the government to move off of positions that are going to be unfavorable to public education, to students, and to our membership. So we would then potentially ask for a strike vote at some point, and that can really happen at any point after you get to 30 days before your collective agreement expires. And so just having a strike vote itself is a very powerful tool, because if your members come out and they vote for strike action, then you take that and you take it to the table and say, our members are serious.
Yep.
They do not want to see any more erosion in their schools. They want their working conditions addressed. They want more supports for the students. They want more adults in the building. They want something done about violence. And when that happens and we get a large vote count, we get a large turnout and a high vote count, then you wind up being able to take that to the other side of the table and say, look, we're serious about this. And so you better start moving on some of your positions. So sometimes you'll take a strike vote and that's enough. That gets you to the agreement. Sometimes it doesn't. And then you have to move into some kind of strike action.
But I guess a question a lot of people would have, or maybe a concern would even be, does voting yes in favor of a strike mean that a strike will automatically be happening?
No, it doesn't. Not at all. It's a common myth, and the word strike, a lot of people don't understand, right? It's you. As soon as you hear that word, you think people walking on the sidewalk with signs in their hands, and that's what happens. But there's all kinds of different outcomes that can happen after a strike vote. What I would say is that a positive strike vote it's almost a necessary piece, right? So if we don't get a strong strike vote, then we can't say to the government that our members are serious,
Yeah.
and we can't put any force behind our positions. And then essentially your contract is up for grabs. They could do whatever they wanted at that point. But just because you vote yes doesn't mean any kind of strike action even needs to happen at all. Like I said, I've had a strong strike vote before, taken that to the table, and it was enough to
Yeah.
get enough movement to get a deal that my members could be happy with in the past. Sometimes that's not enough, and then you can move into different kinds of strike action.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about, for those who maybe are newer to this, haven't experienced yet, what different strike actions could look like?
Yeah, so it could be something very, very simple. And the definition of a strike is really anytime the whole group comes together and takes an action.
Mhm.
So it could be as simple as we're not doing any of the extras that are outside or above what's in our collective agreement. That's called work to rule. A lot of people use that term incorrectly, but basically it means you're just not going to do the extra things. And in education, let's face it, there's a
There's
lot
a
of things
lot.
we do for our
Yeah.
students that we do not get paid for. A lot of time that gets put in where some of our hourly paid members are not getting paid
Yeah.
for it, and they go above and beyond. So you could just simply stop that. And that's still considered a strike action because you're doing it all together.
Hmm.
And then from there, you can take things that are in your collective agreement that you're supposed to be doing and just stop doing them. And you can do that one thing, five things, 10 things, up to and including, then I'm going to withdraw all my labor. I'm not going to do anything and walk out. So, for example, and these are called selective withdrawal of services, you could say, I'm not going to do staff meetings anymore,
Hmm.
or I'm not going to implement the EQAO test. And those two things alone wouldn't be a full strike. And so they would put pressure on the employer. They're usually things we try to pick that have as little impact as possible on the
Yeah.
students. And then you can build from there if need be.
Yep.
And then you can go up to and including a full withdrawal of services, which where you would be on the strike
Yeah.
line with a picket sign and
Yeah.
basically not working.
Yeah. So the first examples that you gave, students would still be in schools with all of that, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
it is up to the employer.
Hmm.
They could always turn around and say we're closing the
Yep.
doors. That would be very popular with the public, I'm sure. But yeah, I mean, generally with selective withdrawal of services strikes, members are still working. They're still being paid. They're still delivering the core functions
Hmm.
of education. And again, we always try to implement things that are not going to put much pressure or be noticed even by students as much as we can in the beginning. And then it's up to the government and the
Yep.
other side as to how far they want things to go. Unfortunately, under the legislation, we don't have a whole lot of tools in our toolkit. So that is one of the big ones.
So right now, we're in a lot of our members are kind of in summer mode. They're not necessarily, they're taking a break, a well deserved break, a lot of them right now. So, not everyone's mind is necessarily on bargaining, but it is something that we do really need to be kind of like preparing for as we're going through it and as we're getting into the school year. Can you talk a little bit about maybe what members could be doing to be supporting bargaining right now and maybe some next steps or ways that they can ensure that they're, staying informed and really keeping and building that solidarity that we need?
Well, I had mentioned about our bargaining bulletins that go out, but there's a lot more information that's available for folks. They can go to our website, underfunded.ca, sign up for newsletters, watch these podcasts, for example, is a good way to get information. And what's really key to that is that they're getting information from the union itself and not taking information from the government.
Mm-hmm.
They will put things out, they will spin things because they're trying to get the public on side
Yeah.
with them. So it's important that our members get what's actually happening at the bargaining table, what the positions actually are, and that they get that information from us. And then outside of that, it's making sure that they're aware of when there are votes, if things happen. So if we do get to a point where we need a strike vote, they should be aware that that's happening, make sure that they're involved. A lot of that information can be found through their local office. We'll put information out to them as well. We have a lot of hardworking local
Yeah.
leaders, presidents, chief negotiators people in different positions who will do communications with them as well to make sure that they're opening those up. And it can be hard. It's hard during the school year. It's even hard during the summer. Like
Yeah.
if you're trying to disconnect, opening that email, because it can cause anxiety, right? It is a stressful thing every round of bargaining because everything in your contract is up for grabs. You don't know what's going to happen. And so the more information you have, the more you can make informed decisions, the more informed information you can share, and the calmer you should be because you know what's happening and you know what the steps are that people are taking to safeguard them.
Absolutely. And I think you hit on a really important piece of making sure that you're comfortable to talk with others about it as well too. Your colleagues, your friends and your family even, because maybe they're getting the information from, like you said, the government in their briefings and their updates, even in their social media, but making sure that our members are comfortable to talk about the actual facts, what is happening in bargaining, and getting that information straight from us is so important so they can be giving that information to their friends and family.
And about the bargaining process, yes, but they live it every day.
Mm-hmm.
They know their classes are getting
Yeah.
bigger. They know that there's violence in the schools. They know that there's not enough support in cleaning the buildings or answering the phones or processing files for students who need special education support. Like everything is under pressure and attack. Everything has been eroded through inflation and improper funding levels coming forward. So they know and they have those real
Yeah.
stories of day-to-day life of what it's like to go in and deal with students who have come out the other side of the pandemic. There's a lot of anxiety there. There's a lot of mental health issues that are there, and they all want to, do well and succeed. And our members want to help them in that endeavor. It's a lot of hard work. The demands that are put on our members are huge. And they often hear that you only work so often or whatever. They know the truth and they need to share that truth.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't deny the reality of what's happening. And that's what I say to members all the time is your stories are real. They need to be shared. It's okay to talk about what's going on. They do a really good job with their students, trying to kind of hide what's going on. So, it just feels the same for students. They're not noticing the cuts as much, but those cracks are showing. Our students are talking about it more, and we're needing to make sure that the public actually knows how difficult it has actually been for our members, all the things that you've mentioned. And it's like something has to give. This can't continue on. It can't be status quo. And we can't lose anything else, right? So we need to be making some actual, some positive gains going forward for our students in public education for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and indeed. And as you watch it happen to the hospital sector, it's no different, right? The education sector has been suffering from underfunding, and over time, the impacts get worse and worse and worse. They don't come in and make big drastic changes because they know that'll be
Yeah,
unpopular and there'll be a
sprinkle
backlash.
it
They
in.
just, the slow boil of the frog in the pot is what's happening. But we're getting to a point where things are in crisis mode, and we need the government to step up and do what they say they do, and that's
Yep.
care about the students and care about the system.
Absolutely. So, if we are going down the road and let's say that a strike vote becomes necessary, what are some things that our members can talk to their colleagues about that maybe you're feeling a little bit more nervous or uneasy about voting yes to a strike, or what that would mean if they vote yes and what could be going forward? What are some like maybe words of advice that you would give to them listening right now?
Yeah, the first thing that members have to understand is the alternative. If we don't get a high strike vote, then it allows the employer to do whatever
Yeah.
they want to their contract. And the things that are in their contract are what governs their day-to-day life, their day-to-day existence in the building. The contract forces employers to do certain things, provide certain things. And so if we're not able to defend that, then that's going to be a problem for them of the outcome. But it's also completely understandable for someone to have high anxiety about I'm voting yes for a strike. It's important to remember that just because you voted yes for a strike doesn't mean you're necessarily going on a strike where you're out on the street with a sign, but it could. And so you do have to
Mhm.
understand that what you're doing is you're giving the bargaining team the power it needs to be able to get to the table and make demands. And depending on how the other side reacts, things can escalate through that
Yeah.
that progression that we talked about earlier. So it's important for people to have that understanding, but it's also important for people who have been around and who have come through strikes,
Mhm.
people who have, uh, um, 2019, we had time on the strike line. They talk to people about what it's really like and why it's important and what the meaning is behind it, and then the outcome if you don't put that forward. But talking about the issues, I mean, if you are a member in the building right now and you're seeing what's happening around you and you're not happy with what that situation is, that yes vote is a message to the other side about that fact, that things aren't the way that they should be and that they need to take it seriously to change things.
Yeah. And not only for themselves, but for students in Ontario right now as well too, and just public education as a whole.
Yeah, they're really inextricably linked, right? Our members' working conditions are our students' learning
Yeah.
conditions. They're in that same classroom with too many people, or they're in that same classroom where there's only one teacher, 30 students, and a lot of variety of need in
Yeah.
that classroom. And or they are, as I said, the one custodian who takes care of two
Yeah.
buildings because they don't, and it just happened to have 2 feet of snow that day, and those sorts of things need to unfold. So like our members know what it's like in those situations, and so that vote yes is a solid message to the other side that things need to change, and it is, it's understandable. I mean, talk about the anxiety, talk about what it is and what's happening in their lives that is going to make that a difficult decision for them with their colleagues, because you're all going to go through it together,
Hmm.
right? That's the power of the union, and it's the strength of it, that you're all sharing the same pathway as you go through this, and all trying to come together and do what's necessary to get things where they need to be to maintain that strong public education system.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when we're talking about strike votes, it's not just a random vote, right? Like it's not just happening. There's a build up to that. Is there like meetings that will be had, or like what would that look like for our members?
That there would be a great deal of communication that has to happen, and a lot of preparation has to go into it as well, right? It's not simple to get 60,000 members to understand that there's votes and where they are and what days they're on, and to be able to come and talk about what the different issues are. So generally, before we take any kind of strike vote, we would have information meetings. Now that we have the ability to have online meetings, sometimes we have mass
Hmm.
member town halls. Information will come through emails definitely as well. So they have written information that they can go back to and read
Yeah.
again and again. So there would be a lot of lead time in terms of this is coming, and this is where you can go to find out information about what's happening, and then be able to have an opportunity to cast the ballot in the vote itself. So it's not just hey, tomorrow we're having a strike vote, right? There's lots of information and lead up. But if you're not on that email chain and you're not reading what your local unit is putting
Yeah.
out, and you're not staying for that portion, like for a union meeting after school or whatever, to know when these things are happening, that's when you can get caught unawares.
Hmm.
And to me, that seems to be where your anxiety is going to peak, because you don't know what's happening. So the best thing you can do is get yourself informed.
Yep, absolutely. And it also gives everyone an opportunity to ask any questions that they might have about it as well, too, right? If they are looking at the packages beforehand, or they can maybe take some time to digest after a meeting, they can always reach out to their local as well, too, and ask any questions that they have, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes we have a lot more information when we head into a strike vote about what's going on, because it's a strategic thing, right? There's timing to it. And so sometimes you want to do it earlier in the process. Other times you want to do it later in the process. And so sometimes the information is merely about what it's like at the table, what the situation is. In this round of bargaining, we've seen this government put out a budget that is flat. It has nothing in it. And that's what they've been doing since 2018. They've been just taking out, and taking out. And so, at this point in time, we already know where things are going before we've even seen what their positions are at the table. And so it's, the timing of these votes can change. There can be more or less information that's concrete around what's happening, but sometimes you just know where things are going.
Yeah.
And so the timing of it is strategic, just like the timing of when you actually do the strike action can be strategic and different from round to round if that's where it needs to go.
Yeah, nothing follows an exact calendar in bargaining, does it, in that sense?
No, I've been doing this for about 25 years, and I've never had a round be exactly the same as the round before it. There's always something different.
Yeah. And that's another reason why it's so important to make sure that you're staying informed and up to date on everything that's going on, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And so what gives you the confidence heading into this phase of bargaining?
The confidence I have comes from 25 years of doing this, multiple strike votes being cast, and our membership, even when there's a large percentage of new members in it, they understand the importance behind it. They come out, they cast a ballot, they say, we trust you to try to get the best possible agreement you can for us, and we know you need this to do it. So
what should members do next?
Be informed. They should take every step they possibly can to collect information, ask questions about that information, make sure that they're in a good headspace of understanding about what's happening, and they should take some time to go through that information and have a good understanding of what it is, and then share their realities too. Talk to their friends, talk to their families. Governments are very good at putting out information that's not factual and that distorts the reality of things, and there has to be somebody setting the record straight on the other side, and no one does that better than our membership.
And so what would you say to a member who still might be unsure about voting yes on a strike vote?
I would say that it's the alternative. What happens if you vote no on this? If enough people vote no, now you have no power at the table. So it's important to have that understanding there. But if you're not sure, get informed. Get the information that you need so that you understand what's happening, what's at stake, those pieces that are important on casting that and making that decision.
Right now, is OSSTF FASO the only education you're really going through bargaining right now, or is that happening with the other education unions as well?
No, in the education sector, the public education sector in Ontario, all of the collective agreements line up to expire on August 31st of a given year, depending on when the collective agreement expires. So all of our education sector unions are going through bargaining at the same time. And I think our members expect that we reach out to them, we talk to them what they're going through, what are their priorities, and we attempt to work together as much as we possibly can to make sure that the education system as a whole is in a good place on the other side of the round of bargaining.
Absolutely. Dave, I just want to say thank you so much for being here with me today and answering the questions that have been coming in from our members.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It's so important that we're able to do this together to talk about bargaining and the process, strike votes, and really what's to kind of come in the fall. So again, it means a lot that you're here today.
Thanks.
So, and I just want to thank everyone as well for joining in today. If you have any questions that you would like answers, or even can think of any podcast topics that we can have going forward, you can send them to us at podcast@ossstf.ca, or even leave a comment on any of the videos on YouTube or even on our social media. Whether you're an OSSTF FASO member, the public, thank you so much for joining in today. It's so important to stay informed about what is going on in public education right now, especially as we're heading into the fall, and we know there's going to be a lot of big things going on. So thanks again so much for joining us today, and we hope to see you soon.